Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to Sustain Ontario's webinar entitled Edible Education Programming in Ontario in a Time of COVID, How to Make It Work. My name's Carolyn Webb and I'm joining you from Ottawa. I'd like to acknowledge that the place I call home is located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And I coordinate what's called Sustain Ontario's Edible Education Network, and I'll be moderating the meeting today. So I'd also like to acknowledge the moment that we're in. I know it's tough. I know many of you have had to make significant changes and pivots to your programs, changes to how you're teaching and engaging with students, in many cases, changes to how you're doing everything. And I know, like me, many of you also have kids at home right now. So I've spent the past 2.5 weeks beside my 6-year-old, guiding him with grade 1 math and spelling, and doing my best work before 8 a.m. And being amazed at our education system and the great teachers who are doing so much right now. And it's hard to know if and when things will go back to how they were. So I just wanted to acknowledge that for all of us, that we're all in this. I want to share a big thank you to all of you for being with us today in the midst of everything, including the US inauguration and everything that's been happening south of our border. And I also want to acknowledge our speakers, Janet, Joanna, and Airin, for being here to share their stories and experiences, all of which have a mix of successes and struggles. So then a quick note about Sustain Ontario's Edible Education Network. It was established to support individuals and organizations who are working to get children and youth eating, growing, cooking, celebrating, and learning about healthy, local, and sustainably produced food. And we've hosted the webinar to continue to have conversations about how to offer school food programming, and specifically edible education or food literacy programming in a time of COVID, where we have so many restrictions in place, including that our schools aren't even open right now. And so the final part of the title of How to Make It Work, well, we're hoping that you can get some creative ideas about how to maybe make some of it work from the event. I know that it's really hard to get it all to work, of course, but hopefully some creative ideas can come from this event. So I'll just click the slide over to our agenda. It's a pretty simple agenda. After my welcome, we'll have our 3 presenters speak. And then we'll have a short Q&A. If you do have any questions during the presentations, you can just type them into the chat box and I'll ask them all together during the Q&A session. So we'll then go into some breakout groups to ask and discuss among ourselves how we're working to adapt our program in light of COVID, to share and connect with each other, and then have a short report back and a goodbye. So a few housekeeping notes before I pass it along to our first presenter. The presentations and the Q&A time will be recorded and shared publicly afterwards. And I'll work on just recording the speakers and their presentations. But if you want to make sure your webcam isn't recorded, then I'd suggest you turn it off. As I said, you can write your questions in the chat box at any time. And if we can't address them all, you can bring them to the breakout groups or reach out to the presenters afterwards. I'll be sharing the emails at the end of the presentation. And just a quick thank you to Farm to Cafeteria Canada, whose partnership and support has helped make the meeting possible. And with that short intro, I will pass it over to our first presenter, Janet Nezon with Rainbow Plate. Janet.
Thanks, Carolyn. I will tell you that I just had a blip and noticed that my internet connection is unstable. So I hope we keep going. If you can't hear me, somehow message me, and I'm just going to share. If you can't hear me, tell me and I won't know. It should be okay. It's back. Everybody was kind of frozen for a minute there. So I'm just going to share my screen. And looks good.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I have 10 minutes, which is not a lot. But as we chatted about the other day, I think the best use of this time is really to tell the story of Rainbow Plate. And Rainbow Plate's story is one of being a nonprofit social enterprise, which, like so many, is one that is really working to strike the balance between our impact and also our viability and sustainability as an organization. We operate through a balance and a mix of third-party funding and also the sales of our products and services. So Rainbow Plate has a very simple and powerful mission to help children cultivate lifelong positive relationships with food and eating. And we worked over the years with many ages, but right now our work is focused on the early years. So children roughly in the 2 to 6 age group. And if I was to summarize one key ingredient behind the work that we do and our approach, it is joy. We're really working to bring joy to food and eating experiences for everyone that we work with. And as you'll see from the image here, we really believe that that means all foods. We operate from a very food neutral, non-judgmental perspective. But having said that, we do have an underlying goal, and that is to help nudge and change children's food preferences to really help them to accept, to eat, and in fact, enjoy fruits and more fruits and vegetables, because we know that that is so critical to their lifelong health. And we know that those can be challenges for all the adults who have children in their lives. We work using the theme and the approach of rainbows of real food because they're evidence-based. They're irresistible, and they really have been this theme that is woven through everything that Rainbow Plate has done since day one. I just wanted to run through a couple of images that give you a sense of really what's behind Rainbow Plate's approach. And first and foremost, as I mentioned already, it is joyful. We are not preaching or rhyming or rules around nutrition. It is really beginning from this place of joy and magic. Our approach is very specifically a sensory one. So we are inviting and encouraging children to dive in and experience food with all of their senses. And there's a huge body of evidence supporting this approach as well. It's child-centered. And so because of the age we work with particularly, so much of what we do is providing sparks, inspiration, and resources for others to use with children in ways that are really driven by the children themselves. And in fact, really harnessing children's sense of wonder about the world around them and their natural curiosity. And it's just been so powerful to see this in action. A few specific points around our approach: it is body positive. We are not focused on obesity prevention, or we don't talk about weight. We are food neutral. We don't classify food in categories that are good and bad in any of the forms that that might take, such as healthy or unhealthy, or we really are embracing all food. And the other beauty about our approach is that it is highly adaptable across any community or context in which someone might want to put it into approach. Woven through everything that we do and our programs and resources, again, is this massive, really important theme that food connects everything. I think people in this audience probably understand that concept and feel that way because we're working here, but really one of our goals is to help children understand the way that food connects everything in the world around them, and that ultimately
Janet, you've cut out for me for a bit.
So even global. So we're ultimately hoping that we can contribute to children becoming ambassadors for a healthier future. Thinking about the idea of food connecting everything is also a notion that we can use food, particularly with young children, but at any age, to actually connect with any area of the curriculum. And so just a quick peek at some examples from some of our programs, you know, eating cucumbers and looking at literacy and how one could spark experiences from that. This exploration of a cabbage, you know, I could ask if we had more time, but it was a springboard into a discussion about the body and the brain. You can probably see from this image here. And just there is incredible power to spark learning and connections across all areas of a child's world through food. My favorite element, and I couldn't run through all of them in the short time that I have, but our approach is really about helping children and adults to marvel at the magic within food itself. And just some quick images that give you a sense of what that means in the Rainbow Plate approach. There really is magic and wonderful things that we can discover inside food if we begin to look at food differently, and to help children to do that. And when we give children the opportunity to experience this and to see food from this different approach and to dive in themselves and make discoveries, what we find is that they make their own connections to food. And when they have opportunities to eat these amazing foods, they spontaneously will embrace them, which is really very powerful. One of the anchor concepts and themes, again, behind our approach is a simple rhyme: rainbow plate, tell me the colors that you ate. Again, color is such a big piece behind what we do. And this is an idea that's positive. It's not about restricting or criticizing or judging what's on anyone's plate, because we know that is a very complex history as to what arrives on someone's plate. But this approach of celebrating color as a starting point is adaptable across cultures, across any budget and any community. One can find it has very great relevance. So Rainbow Plate began as an organization that delivered hands-on, interactive, experiential workshops to children in schools, childcare, community organizations. And over about 7 years that we were doing that, we had mind-blowing positive experiences reaching about 16,000 children. And we saw it with our own eyes, but we were actually thrilled to have published research evidence evaluating our program and showing that this approach with children and food changed children's behavior. And there's a study that we have published courtesy of an amazing team at Ryerson University. And so based on this validation of what we've been seeing and we knowing, I mean, the great vision for Rainbow Plate is that sensory-based food education is woven into the early years experience of every Canadian child. But as a business, as a sustainable organization, delivering workshops that involve fruits and vegetables and rainbows and all of what we were doing was challenging to scale and to be financially viable. So in 2019, we pivoted. And the story of Rainbow Plate is really, like many social enterprises, one of continuous pivots. And the COVID scenario and the recent pivot that we've taken is almost just like, okay, now this is the pivot of this year. So we've been pivoting. Carolyn mentioned it in our chat the other day. We've always been pivoting. So in 2019, we gathered up all the evidence that we had and all the elements behind our approach, and we launched a resource for educators focused on the ECE audience. So the Rainbow Food Explorers program was born, and we launched the Rainbow Food Explorers Educator Toolkit, which is a hefty binder with washable plastic cards and all kinds of content that educators could use in their own settings to weave this approach throughout their whole program. And I wanted to just give you a peek at some of the pieces in that, but we provide background. It's not
Janet, we can't hear you again. We can try a moment more. Nope. Oh, you're back.
Am I back? Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
you're good.
I'm sorry. All right. So just a look at some of the pieces in our educator toolkit. So tips for supporting positive experiences, a rainbow of fruit and vegetable cards, giving all sorts of approaches for supporting children in using this approach and discovering all about food and extending the exploration, and lots of cross-curricular ideas to spark learning in other areas of the curriculum. So science and numeracy, and there are lots of others. So this program was launched and supported with educator workshops, and we had such enthusiastic feedback around its value, and it's been now shared and implemented in various ECE settings in elementary schools, and it's actually been shared in locations across Canada and even around the world. And then COVID hit. And so we have continued to make this available and to support people implementing this in a wide variety of settings. The educator workshops pivoted to being virtual. This is me conducting a virtual workshop with a whole team of ECEs, experiential, which was powerful. But in addition to that, we pivoted as well to reach out to another audience, which is parents and families who are at home with their children. And the question was, how can we bring this approach and help support parents who are really at home with their children right now? So the first step in that was recording a series of videos, which are available on our website and our YouTube channel, which bring this approach to life, and they can be watched. And we've had great feedback that certain educators simply show the videos to their children and spark conversations and activities relating to them. And parents were doing the same. And then in November, we launched Rainbow Food Explorers at Home, which is a separate toolkit or resource, much smaller and digital, available for download, that we are offering for a fee to families through our website. And what it does is bring this approach right into the home setting. And so helping parents to take this and help them implement this approach and help them relax around food with their children and help decrease some of the family stress. So a peek into some of what that looks like. Again, ideas for helping to keep things positive with kids and food and pressure-free, and modified versions of some of the resources to give people lots of activities to conduct with their children, recipes, and as you can see, ideas for extending exploration into other areas, dramatic play and science and so on. And our goal is to really complete the loop in reaching children through all the areas that influence their lives. So we will continue to share our resources with educators. We are adding more videos and adding more content to this original toolkit. And ultimately, we are hoping to help children connect with food and have consistent and positive and joyful messaging in all of the areas of their lives. So we are currently looking for ways that this resource and our other resources can support adults who are working with children in a whole variety of settings, be it childcare, public health, schools, ECE, and at home. And
1 minute, Janet.
Yep, that's the end of my presentation.
Oh, fantastic.
I practiced my timing. So yeah, that's the story of Rainbow Plate. It has been pivot after pivot, but we have consistently seen our approach be so valuable and so positive, which is something I think we all need right now. And we're always looking for ways to...
Oh, we can't hear you. I think you're back.
Yep. Oh dear. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Janet. And we've had a lot of comments just saying that the content is so beautiful, and yeah, just some appreciation for everything there. I have a question about what feedback you've received, but I'm going to save that for the whole group Q&A discussion. So with that, I'm going to just say a big thank you so much, Janet. Your pictures are so inspiring, and it's really great to hear about your work. And did you have a few last comments you wanted to make right at the end there? Can't hear you, sorry. Oh, you're on mute though.
I muted myself. There I am. Yeah. I'm back. Sorry, I missed the last bit of what you said.
Did you want to make any closing comments?
I mean, the closing comment is I think that it has been an ongoing journey as any social enterprise, and we are continually pivoting in response to the forces around, but with this vision of saying, how do we keep this moving forward and what are the ways to do so? It requires resilience, I think, as many people in this room, virtual room, would agree. But based on the impact alone, it has been something that is seen has been so valuable. So we are always looking for the next opportunity to keep it moving forward.
Thanks so much, Janet. All right, we'll come back to you in the Q&A. Great, and I will now ask Joanna to share her presentation.
Yes. All right, just give me 1 second. Oops. There we go. Can you see my screen well?
Yep, looks great. Thanks, Joanna.
Okay, wonderful. Well, hi, everybody. So I'm Joanna. I'm the program coordinator at Growing Up Organic. So for those of you who don't know Growing Up Organic, it is a project of Canadian Organic Grower, COG also more specifically, a chapter of COG National. So we actually operate mainly in Ottawa region. Growing Up Organic is based on the belief that the most effective way of shaping lifelong choices and environmental values is to connect children and youth with the origin of their foods by providing them opportunities to engage hands-on in its production. So one of the most powerful ways of getting people, kids included, to start thinking about their food is actually to get them to grow it themselves and prepare it themselves. So we basically support schools in establishing and expanding organic vegetable gardens as outdoor experiential education tools. So over the past 10 years, we've been engaging schools across the city to support them in establishing organic school vegetable gardens and deliver curriculum connected garden-based programming and connect also with local organic farms. So we aim to foster a generation of children and youth with greater food literacy and lifelong healthy habits. And we want to increase their skills and understanding of what they eat, what's the impact of where does what they eat come from, and what's the impact of how it's been grown, and like the bigger impact in terms of environment. What's very special about our program is that it's curriculum connected. So I'm going to look at that in a moment, but it's something that makes it very powerful for the teachers and the students at school. So we've been working for over a decade, and we offer the schools the tools, the resources, and the ongoing support to embark on this kind of projects with confidence. Everything from sourcing materials to curriculum integration to volunteer management. So we have 8 schoolyard garden workshops, and we've been working for over 40 schools in Ottawa and surrounding counties. It is thanks to the OCDSB, which is the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, who funds us very, very much, and really allows us to have such a wide outreach in Ottawa region. And thanks to them, we can offer about 100 workshops every year, touching about 700 students and more. One of the other quality of our program is that it is bilingual. We offer everything in French and English, and we've been working with the Eastern Ontario School Board also. We don't have the same type of partnership that we have with the OCDSB, but we do have also a strong relationship, and we seek to have a similar partnership as we have with OCDSB with the CPO to offer the same range of workshops and activities over there. So here is something that really, I think, very pictures well what we do. So we really try to embed food within the curriculum, like I said before. So instead of going to a health class, the students are inquiring about their food and participating in food choices throughout their day, making it even more likely that these lessons come to shape their ideas about food and their eating habits. So a grade 5 teacher can bring her students to the kitchen to bake bread and feel like they've covered important math expectations, for example, or observing increased insect life and plant life in the garden responds to grade 6 biodiversity expectations as another example. So, transposing all of these lessons outside of the classroom is really something very powerful, and usually, the kids respond very well, and then not only do they enjoy this at school, but they bring that at home, and it's of course a lifelong process. So just to show you a bit how it was before COVID. So like I said, we have these different workshops. We have 8 in total. And basically the way we work is we would initially identify the schools that need garden builds. And as you can see on the picture, we go and we build the gardens with the kids. In normal times, the kids actually build the gardens themselves, about 3 beds per school. And then we offer the accompanying workshops, which are like planning the garden, which is more of an indoor workshop, but then outdoor will be salad garden, seedlings transplanting, garlic planting, seed saving. And, we do that across the year, like from spring to fall. So here's a few pictures depicting that. So, you know, the kids do a lot of work planning inside, and then they do a lot of their work outside, and it's a great way to connect them to nature. Now, of course, COVID has brought its challenges for us because we are a very experiential organization. You know, our programs are very experiential. So what we last year in the spring, because of the sudden events, we couldn't really deliver any workshops. So we prepared better for the fall workshops and created a new workshop, garlic and composting. We also delivered strawberry roots to the schools who had already garden beds. And we were even able actually to deliver one garden build workshop where a school was able to build 3 beds in their garden. So what we did is that we provided manuals, we delivered the materials at the schools, and we provided online support. We also did a step-by-step video, and I'm going to show this to you very quickly. So this is what we did for the soil composting and garlic workshop. So we just basically created a page, you know, like overall information about the workshop and the garlic and composting, and divided in categories. And we made, sorry, it's a bit slow to charge. Yeah. So then we deliver, you know, we gave all the information, and we actually created videos to really show the step-by-step. And with accompanying workshops, you know, activities workshop for the kids to also, you know, think about everything and understand the whole cycle of the activities. So here again, we had everything from understanding what garlic is, to preparing the garlic planting, to doing planting. And we've had really great feedbacks from that, from the schools. It was really great. The kids really loved it. So here you have a few pictures of what the result was. So it's those schools who had already a garden beds. So they prepared the beds for winter with the straw after having planted the garlic. So it was a really fun activity for them all. Now, of course, we now need to prepare for spring. So the spring workshop will be pretty much in the same shape as for the fall. So we will actually continue with the garden builds, but this time we're going to have to deliver, because of the current situation at the moment, kids not being at school, but even if they go back to school, they can't really touch anything, they can't really work together. So we decided together with the OCDSB, that our main partner, so that we would actually deliver pre-made kits. So we would actually make the garden beds before delivering them to the schools. Now, of course, it's going to be a bit of a logistical issue. It's not going to be that easy. And also it removes the experimental parts that is so important for us, because we will be making the beds and not the kids. But we're hoping that the other workshops about salad planning the garden and salad planting will be able to bridge that gap. So these workshops will be made available online with videos, just like similar ones that I showed you before, you know, like we'll just deliver like a full manual and step-by-step videos to make sure that the teachers as well as the students have the right tools to do everything on their own without us being present.
1 minute, Joanna.
Yes. It's the end.
You can wrap up. You've got a minute or so.
Okay, all right. So I was just at the end in any event, but so just to wrap up, we also have a new website coming up now where we will actually gather all of these workshops and these videos to make everything available online for the teachers and students to use, and even, you know, beyond Ottawa region. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop here and leave it to questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I'm excited, very excited for the new website, and just a way to go with all your adaptations. I know it's been a lot. And we do have some questions that we will save for the end. People seem particularly interested in feedback and funding models, and so we'll touch on those soon. All right, over to Airin.
Great. Hi, I'm just going to get my, hi, everyone. I am just going to share my screen. Share my screen. This one.
I've got to say, before COVID, a lot of the time I needed to do a lot of tech tests, and these days everyone seems to know where all the right buttons are and how to make it all work. So thanks, Airin.
Great.
Over to
so you can see my screen?
Yep.
Great.
Good.
Hi, everyone. I am Airin Stephens. I am the program director at Roots to Harvest. Just so you know the context, Roots to Harvest, we are a nonprofit organization in Thunder Bay. We have 12 full-time staff, and in the summer, our staff goes up to about 35, 38 people during the farming season. So just in terms of size, we are in Thunder Bay. So for those of you who are down in the south, Thunder Bay is right where my cursor is up here, very close to the Minnesota border. There's nothing close to us, like 8 hours in each direction. Sault Ste. Marie in one direction, Winnipeg. So we are geographically isolated. And I would say that Roots to Harvest thrives on the land of the Fort William First Nation people, signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. Without this land, we would not be able to grow and learn from the food that we use within our schools. So I think it's super important when we're thinking about food and food literacy and food programs that we recognize the land as a key piece to that. So for those of you just thinking where Thunder Bay is. So our mission is to use food as a tool to connect people to one another, to build belonging, dignity through meaningful programs, initiatives, and advocacy. And so what does this look like? Well, so this is like an overview of like non-COVID times. We do youth employment. So we hire 16 to 30-year-olds on 2 urban farms. We run in-school programs in the publicly funded schools as well as the federally funded First Nation schools. We do food literacy cooking on site in our industrial kitchen with newcomers, adults, and youth. We support nearby community initiatives with the drive-in First Nations that are near us when they invite us in and ask for our support. And we do advocacy work on employment, mental health supports, social supports, anti-racism and discrimination in this town. And so our mandate is broad. And so, okay. 2 years ago, we did this mural, and it was a really great community collaborative event. And I know that this hashtag has come up all over. We're all in this together. But really, in Thunder Bay, the approach with Roots to Harvest when COVID initially hit in March really took on this mantra. So between March and October, in those early days of lockdown, how did we as an organization that did a ton of school programs respond? Well, I'm not really into the pivoting piece of it. I'm into the jumping piece of it. And so Roots to Harvest jumped. We jumped into the world of emergency food access specifically for kids and families that would normally get their breakfast and snack programs at school. And I know each school board delivered it differently, but what we did here is we partnered very closely with the Catholic and public school boards, as well as the Red Cross is the one who the money comes through for the school nutrition program and Breakfast Clubs of Canada. And we jumped right in and we started putting together bags of food that we then reached out to our community partners. And it was anywhere between 350 and 500 bags a week that we did from March until the end of August. So throughout the summer. And the numbers that we did were staggering: 160,000 meals to families and kids. We also, just to know the context, we're not just doing kids, we're also doing elders, seniors, street involved women, the shelters in town, and nearby First Nations. And so what this looked like for us, so what education looked like for us in our in Roots to Harvest was that we put together these bags of 12 to 15 items. Some of it was funded by the Northern Fruit and Vegetable Program. And I think Ivan from our health unit is on this call. We also sent out weekly notices. So we partnered with other community organizations and churches, and we brought the food bags there. The thing about Roots to Harvest is we build relationships. So all of these organizations on this slide, they stood up and said, yes, we will be a site. We will take 40 bags and have people come here and we will distribute them out. Because we know far too often programs with people where you expect people always to come to you. And so we went out into the community. And in each week, we partnered with our local educators, and we put in educational activities. So this is something from Science North around beginner birding. There were seeds involved in it. So it was quite exciting, the kind of collaborative effort that happened. Fast forward to this fall. Schools in Thunder Bay have remained opened in the fall. And so what our response has been is that we have been welcomed into the schools. We have been welcomed into the schools by the school board, by the district health unit, and by community. So we just said, okay, great. We're not sure if we can be inside the school yet. In September, we weren't sure. So let's just go outside. So we got a small grant from our local community foundation, $3,000-ish. Maybe it was $2,500, but we probably spent $3,000. And we brought the cooking outside. So we went and brought all of our gear. We brought our apple cider press. We got fire pits, we cooked with people, we brought all of our learning outside, and which was quite exciting and inspiring for these kids who might not have anything going on or have not been in school for a period of time. One of the other really great things that we did is we approached the communities about, we want kids to work with fire. We want them to be able to cook foods outside. We want them to be able to engage with those materials. And so in the city of Thunder Bay, we actually have a fire permit to build fires on each of the schools that we go to. We just have to like bring a concrete pad, and we have to adhere to all of the policies and have water buckets and all that. But we actually are using fire to cook outside. So what it often looks like is we're going, and like we're in winter here. We're out, this is when, Gavin, who's also on the call today, he goes up to KZA and he works with a group of Lakehead Public Schools students, and they cook outside. And so they were cooking, they made pasta and meatballs, and they're cooking outside in this really kind of engaged way. And so what does that look like in the city? We bought these little tiny chairs and little tiny portable fire pits and outdoor burners, and we just cooked on whatever piece of property that we can cook. And so it's been really exciting because we're able to get the students out and still have that experiential component. And so these students are outside, they're masked. The district health unit here has a schools team, and the schools team has decided what is allowable for kids in terms of making food within your cohort and then eating it within your cohort and not sharing it with other folks. But we're making, we have one of those uni pizza ovens. We're making pizzas outside with kids. So they still have this hands-on experiential component. And you can see some of these kids, like it's winter, and some of them are wearing their jackets and some of them aren't, like typical teenagers do. But what this is allowing is this hands-on experiential way of experiencing food. And what we're seeing is kids are doing so much online work that they just need some hands-on stuff. We did not go online. We do not have the skill set to go online. We did not want to jump on that. So we actually do nothing online. Everything that we do is in person. And so we make apple cider, we cook outside with them, we make pancakes, we just bring everything portable, which means like we have a van that's full of all of this stuff. So the pack up is extensive and the cleaning is extensive, but it provides folks who might not necessarily have chances to have hands-on learning to do it. So Roots to Harvest is all about building relationships. We build relationships with all different programs. And so some of the programs that we go into are in partnership with our Indigenous community. And so this particular program, we're allowed to go into the gardens. We're allowed to harvest the food. We're allowed to plant the garlic. Our school board has designated us an essential service, just like physiotherapists and social workers coming into the school. They see that Roots to Harvest is building these relationships within the schools that are key to lifelong learning and engaging students. Also being a northern school, we also work in fished and hunted and foraged food. So this was in -15 outside on the picnic tables, learning how to fillet fish and then making a fish fry. And I will say the next picture is also food in that we have partnered in that the local conservation authority got a deer that was poached illegally. We then we don't have the knowledge to skin it in a traditional way, but what we do is we have the food skills. So we came in and helped to support the cooking or the processing of the meat, the grinding of the meat, so that they can later use it, and all of the kids were able to use it. And this is all wild game. So it's done within how the health unit determines that you use wild game. These are in the schools. So we have been going into schools. We're also using traditional foods. And so we're growing traditional foods. This is a gete squash, 800-year-old squash seeds that we've germinated and used in programs. And the way that the health unit is set is you can have meals, but you can't eat it there. So we're here cooking up the food, taking it out, portioning it into pieces so that people can take it home with them. We're cooking with fire. It is so much fun to have fire on school property. It's like really, really great. I don't know if everyone would think that, but our fire department is super fine with us if we need all the precautions for us to cook with fire. And so we are doing that a lot. And so,
use that to say 1 minute warning.
Yeah, okay. So we're cooking outside. And so this is meaning we're in many different environments, cooking outside, being active, but we're also cooking in schools. We're making poutine, we're using grow towers. And this is just to illustrate that we are able and safely, our health unit has declared it. In the last 3 weeks, that has changed with this state of emergency. We have chosen as an organization to not continue to go into schools just until this piece is done because of the elevated awareness. Kids are in school here, so we have that going for us. The other thing I want to say is that with the online learners that are happening, we're seeing a huge group of kids that are not getting any of their snacks and food. So we're taking on this initiative. We're doing 150 bags a week, and we're delivering them to locations. We're using community partners. So actually kids are getting their food that they normally would get at school there. And the other thing I just want to highlight is we are building this really great on-site outdoor cooking space with a bread oven, with a fire pit, with water, with wood storage on-site. We've got a bunch of a team helping do that, although it's been harder with COVID, but we actually have this bread oven that's going on. That's it. If you have any more questions, that's my information, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Airin. I see a lot of excited comments about the outdoor cooking and the experiential learning, and just some comments. It seems as though, like all of our presentations today, have really focused on that experiential piece. All right, I'm going to ask Janet and Joanna to be ready for some questions. And so I see, I'm just gonna put everybody on spotlight if that makes a difference for anybody's view. Okay, so we should have our 3 speakers up now. I've seen a lot of great questions in the chat and a lot focus on kind of 3 themes. The feedback, so I'd love to ask all of you a bit more about the feedback you've heard and what parents or teachers or folks have really appreciated about your programs and how. I'd love to, people have asked about funding and how you're either getting funding or adapting your funding or creating a sustainable model or even trying to go in that direction during this time. And then relationships and how you built relationships with the board or, you know, the fire team or just the health unit, the relationships that have helped make all of this happen. And so I think I'll start with the feedback. Yeah, just what feedback have you folks heard and what have people most appreciated or enjoyed with your model?
I can jump in because I saw that come up when I was speaking. Someone asked about feedback from parents. In a word, mind-blowing. The feedback that we get most often is that it's such a different way of trying to connect young children with food, and it takes away the stress. It takes away this dance between whether it's educators or parents. It just takes food out of this pressure kind of push-pull into this really joyful and relaxed place. And the other piece that we've had so often is that it's really just an approach that is so adaptable and accessible, and that has been our intent. And we're thrilled to say that it's been very much perceived that way and incorporated in a variety of different settings. So
thanks, Janet. So it sounds as though people have really appreciated the entire approach and the learning approach that you take. Thanks. Airin or Joanna, and any comments about the feedback during this time and how, your adaptations have been received, or not adaptations, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we received very good feedbacks. Also, we actually even did a survey at the end of the year to see if we were on the right track. So to prepare for spring, but we did receive excellent feedback from the teachers, and apparently, yeah, the kids absolutely loved the activities. They really liked the videos that we made. They were filmed on a farm, so the kids felt like, oh, it's so nice to meet Farmer Joanna and Farmer Chloe, who's my colleague. So they were very excited, and they apparently the activity was just as nice as if we had been there, because they just experienced it the same way.
Thanks. Airin?
And I'll just say, we like the tough teenagers in high school. So I don't think I've ever gotten any parent feedback, unless they are the teenagers that we hire in the summertime and get that employment. But we have just recently done an evaluation of quadmester 1 and quadmester 2 with our high school students. And some of the questions that we ask of the teachers and of the students are, when Roots to Harvest is coming to your class, does that make you, like, if you know they're coming, does that make you want to attend school more? Does it make you more interested? And across the board, every student says, I will never miss a day of school when Roots to Harvest comes. They make it fun, they make it exciting. And there was this one recent comment that was like, I can't believe that Roots to Harvest came in and they made poutine with us. I thought they were totally gonna come in and make salad with us or something out of kale. And I love that. I love the idea that we are meeting the teenagers where they're at, so that we're going in and making the poutine with them, with the local cheese curds and the local gravy and the local potatoes, so that next time I'm going to come in and give them a piece of kohlrabi, but they've already bought into me. They've already bought into this being an incredible experience, and that we can actually engage with them and challenge them after they bought in, because it's a bit of a different thing working with teenagers. And I would just highlight, the classes that we go into aren't the academic level classes. We work in the workplace level classes, or the folks who are getting a high school certificate. Like, we work with folks who might not attend school often. And so that's sort of who we target. And to get that response from them is really great.
Thanks so much, Airin. And I love that all of you cover such a different age range, where, the younger folks, it would be a lot of the parent feedback or the teachers. And then, yeah, for you, Airin, much more from the students and in some cases teachers. So thanks, everyone. The next big question is around funding. So I don't know if any of you can share, how have you been funded for this, or continued to be funded, or even experimenting with different funding models, or anything that you can share. I think people would be really interested in.
I'm happy to jump in first again, if we're kind of going in that
Thanks.
order. And that has absolutely, as I touched on earlier, been part of the challenge and the journey of Rainbow Plate, is to figure out a model that works, because we've been through a few iterations. We haven't nailed it yet. We were very, very fortunate to have had the support of one particular foundation and a funder. That was actually through the development of our educator toolkit and programming, and up until the past year. And that funding has not continued. And so, because of the audience that we serve, because of ECE being the large focus, and we're not really working with one intact community, as I think kind of both of the other organizations are, we're really just trying to reach this broadest possible audience. So we have to be creative in funding. And so we've recognized that there's always going to be this need for us to generate revenue ourselves through the sale of our products and services, and through partnerships and additional funding. And so, yeah, we're still figuring that out. We currently do not have a major funder, and we are generating the revenue that we can through selling our resources, our toolkits, educator workshops, parent workshops, and obviously looking for other funding opportunities to support the work that we're doing. And so it's an ongoing journey, COVID or not.
Yeah. Joanna, and there were one or two questions specific to your partnership with the OCDSB. Yeah, and how that's funded, if it's through a certain program, or if you can just touch on that a bit.
Yeah, sure. So it's a funding, it's a secure funding we've been having every year for the past 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. So quite a while. And don't quote me on this, because I've been with Growing Up Organics for only a few months, so I might be mistaken. But it's been ongoing for a few years, and I don't know if it's been we're being funded through a specific program, but the board has always loved our programs, and they just decided, to sign an MOU with us, and they fund Growing Up Organic specifically every single year for us to deliver a certain amount of workshops in the schools. And so we work very closely together, identifying which schools will have the new garden built every year, and which schools will get then the workshops. So yeah, we work together hand in hand to prioritize what's going to happen. The additional fundings that we get would be through applications we send to different organizations, trying to get funding specifically for the French-speaking part of our program. But yeah, I think the one with the OCDSB allows us very much flexibility. It's just, it's a secure funding that we get every year from them. This year was a bit more specific because of the situation. We received the funding in two segments, but we received everything nonetheless. And they're keen on having us deliver our workshops regardless of how. I know also that the higher people at the OCDSB are very keen on the program, so that could be also where it originates, initially.
Thanks so much, Joanna.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a really exciting model that many people are look to and really getting that core support from a school board can be so meaningful and fantastic. And I know in chatting with folks who were in your role before, they talked about really aligning with the board's strategic plan and really making a case within meeting the board's deliverables and goals, and how it's just really great that you've been managed to do that. So thank you.
Perhaps as a side note, I think this is also why we want so badly to create a similar partnership with the CPO on the French-speaking part, just because the model is so great. We're just fully funded to deliver a certain amount of workshops, and we're able to touch upon so many schools every year. So obviously it's really an ideal model for us.
Thanks so much. And yeah, definitely hoping that the model can be replicated in other areas. Airin?
Funding is always the question. So we do not charge schools for any of our programs. And I would say for the last quadmester, we probably were in like 50 classrooms, 200 programs, I don't know. So we do a whole lot. So how we fund is we fund a lot in our community. We ask the people in our community to support us, which is actually raised the awareness and raised people's interest in us. And so people donate to us because they know that we're reaching out to kids. We also, our staff, a lot of them are hired under something called the NOHFC, the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Canada intern program. So we can hire staff through that. They're not super high paid, but they're usually intended for people who graduate just graduated university. And we're really good at writing grants. Really good at writing grants over and over and over. And then, so it's like big money we go for, but we also go for small money. That $2,500 we got from the Community Foundation to do our outdoor programming, that's not a lot of money to write a grant for. And that has allowed us to do all of this innovative and creative programming. And then we now have this stuff that we can then build from. And so it's about getting the big money and the consistent donors, but it's also all these little pockets that you can get. Our local Rotary Fund, we just got $1,000 to do all of our bee honey stuff and all of our, to create an educational toolkit to go out to schools and do that. So we're really good at getting the small little bits and using it and being really thankful to our donors and being like, people who donate to Roots to Harvest feel as though they're a part of it. I don't really know how else to say that, but we build relationships. And this is that long piece. And maybe I'll just jump into that third point that you're talking about, Carolyn, is that relationships are key. The people that you meet with and the people that you talk with, we're a town that's smaller of like 130,000 plus 30,000 transient that come in from working in, the northern communities, that we are constantly building relationships with people, and those relationships last. And, our ED often says, well, this could not be about food. It could be about carpentry. And the key is that we're building these relationships. And so that when I call someone up, we're in relationship in all ways. And that's why online learning won't work for us, is because we have built these long standing relationships with people and have, I've worked with them. And the other piece I would say is finding relationships with those like unlikely partnerships. You know, so we have a very strong partnership with the eFry Society. So eFry supports women who are either at risk of incarceration or leaving incarceration. We have a very strong relationship with them. And so by building these relationships with people, we're also being like advocates in the city, and our reach is getting a lot bigger. And I cannot say enough about the relationship building. It just takes time. It takes time and time and time and phone calls and going for walks and being there for people when they need you.
Thanks, Airin. Janet or Joanna, do either of you want to touch on relationships?
I think I would just totally echo what Airin said, that everything comes down to relationships, whether it's building a presence in the community that you serve, or finding new opportunities to leverage your work, or funding. I could not agree more. And, you know, whatever has happened in our organization is 100% the same. It's due to relationships. I mean, we did I guess there are a lot of little things I never mentioned. I mean, we did a partnership project this past summer with Second Harvest. That was a beautiful relationship, hopefully the beginning of more. We were commissioned to create food literacy resources for an initiative that they were doing. And I think, you know, relationships always are two-sided, they're mutual. And those are the best relationships, is finding an organization, an individual, a funder, an audience that sees the vision that you have and finds value in it, and finding ways to collaborate. So basically, yeah, I could not agree more. The only thing I disagree on is that you can still build relationships online. I mean, it's different. I think it's just, I think there are foundations, and I could not agree more that in person and going for walks and all of that, absolutely, it's different. But what we're seeing in this era is that, you know, we can do things virtually, and in fact, some ways connect broader. I mean, Rainbow Plate has built relationships with organizations around the world. We have some partners and collaborators in Australia and New Zealand and the UK. I mean, we're definitely Canadian focused, but it's been mind-blowing to me to build relationships to people who are working in the same space that we are. Sensory-based food education is an international organization, and having the capacity to connect through the technology is beautiful. But yeah, for moving things forward on the ground here and now, you're 100% right.
Thanks, Janet. Joanna, any additional thoughts?
No, I echo Janet and Airin, really. I really do.
Thank you. All right, then we are just invite, I guess, our panelists, if you're okay, to come back and just share a few thoughts and themes that came up during the discussions.
Yeah, I can start, Caroline.
Sure.
I have to say I was pretty unlucky, because I got kicked out of the room at some point because of my bad internet connection. I live in the countryside, so I missed about a good 10 minutes, I think, of the discussions. But I think the discussions were great, because we were able to share, you know, for what I could see, and others can definitely compliment me, but we could share a lot on, you know, what we experience, what we do. It seems that a lot of us are going online in any event, and some have even funding to do so. So we're sharing ideas on how to go online in a way that's interactive, with animations for kids, you know, to make it interesting for them, but also to maintain that connection to nature. So some good ideas were shared, like live visits of farms, fireplaces, and you know, like Airin was also mentioning, Jess, I really like that, and we'll probably connect with Airin about that. Yeah, and then just you know, just bring that experiential learning in the digital world, but maintaining that connection to nature and to the workshop. So from what I could follow, despite being kicked out, that's what I took out. I know, of course, the others are free to add for the time I was out.
Thanks so much, Joanna, and thanks for trying to recap even though you were gone. People can, insert comments into the chat box if there were any insights that they really wanted to share. Janet.
Thanks. And so in our group, lots of interesting discussion, a diverse group of organizations. And I think we all agreed that we're all pretty much been here in this webinar as sponges, and everybody's soaking up from everyone else because there's so much that our organizations have in common in hearing the different challenges. And I think the theme that I would say overall, what people shared was really that we're all figuring it out as we go. And that in the end, sort of as what Joanna just mentioned, the challenge is to really remain true to sort of the core of what it is behind what we're doing. I mean, is it building relationship? Is it building food sovereignty? Is it forming that, maintaining that connection to the land? And people are finding the challenges and the creative solutions to sort of how do we do that given where we're at. I think the people shared some creative ideas, because they had unique challenges. One person in our groups, their biggest challenge was transportation, getting their participants from the large geographic area they're in to come to their site where they could possibly do outdoor things. Another was, how do you take a garden experience and bring it into a classroom where you can't be there to be part of it? So they designed, a sunflower growing competition where they could send seeds and so on. And so I think, like not one big thing, but rather each of us sort of navigating through the challenges. And I think being clear on what those are and what our unique challenges are and our unique strengths are, and finding ways to solve them. So we had sort of a more generic kind of conversation around that. And I think, I think it's just part of the ongoing journey that people are saying, how do I keep delivering on this mission, despite this? And so, yeah, the mix of online versus in person where certain regions are able to do that. And then the designing of resources, whether they are for digital interactive things or whether they are for, just resources people can access, how to make them engaging and really bring that experiential piece that is behind so much of what all of us are doing. How do we bring that into this different landscape that we're now working in? People in my group want to jump in if I missed anything.
Thanks, Janet and team. I'll just share from our group. I'll speak for about a minute because I know time's getting tight, but another great discussion. A lot of people with ideas and different adaptations and a lot of questions, of course. As Janet said, a lot of just, everyone is still working it through. So there was some discussion around how to get appropriate feedback from teachers about this work because everything is constantly shifting and it's just tough to keep up the communications sometimes. One comment was that maybe we just need to accept during this time that we can offer that supportive communications and just try to keep positive and know that we might not get a lot of feedback. Another comment was maybe a weekly or monthly call out where anybody, parents, students, teachers can share ideas to the organization or program or offer criticisms. One program was talking about really gearing up for maybe some March break activities with that a couple of months away. Another comment was about really using this time to focus on helping some specific people develop skills for facilitating meetings or supporting folks and really building that leadership capacity and strengthen the skills and development of individuals to do this great work in the future. We heard from a guest from PEI about a great program, a grant from the province as a pilot project where I believe that there was a partnership with local farmers that could deliver veggie boxes to patients who had type 2 diabetes, and just some creative ways that the federal or the provincial funding was helping folks access food that they needed. I think I will stick with that, pass it over to Airin, and then we can say goodbye to everybody.
I'm just going to say briefly, I love the way that people are being creative, and I would just encourage people to continue to take risks and to be creative with that. We have people from BC and Ontario, like in Nova Scotia in our group, and people from different sectors. And I would just say, continue to be creative. I think the system is being disrupted in ways that are hopefully allowing us to reach new people in new ways. And I would just continue people to be empowered by what you hear and just try something. And if it fails, then try something again. And I just everyone, Nancy and Kathy and Amelia, Jennifer, and Holly, who was not Janelle, all had really interesting things to say, like, we're going to try this, and this is what's being tried, and hopefully it'll work. And yes, like, we've tried something new, and I think that's great.
Thanks so much. All right, I will share one of our last slides. Just, did that work? Can people see the speaker presentation contact info? So again, a big thank you to all of our speakers. I know everybody's gotten so much from the insights you shared. Thank you to everybody who participated, shared your stories. We are going to have future events like this. I know that there's been a big appetite for learning from each other. And so please reach out if you'd be in a position or interested in sharing your own story of how you're adapting in this time. I've also been asked by a teacher if the next one could be in the evening and focus on educators perhaps. And so we're gonna think that through a little bit more. I'll be sending out a post-event survey along with a link to the recording, hoping for tomorrow. And so please watch for that. And in that you can also share just your feedback that we can learn from and what you might enjoy other conversations in the future focusing on. And so with that, just a big thank you for joining. Wishing everybody a great rest of your day. And I'm just wondering if the speakers could just hold back for a few minutes to just quickly chat. So thanks everyone, all the best.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.